The views and opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Atlanta 24 Community Media, staff, management, and its affiliates. Welcome to Johane Garvey and My Special Guest, the show in which we have one-on-one conversations with the best and brightest influential people in the industry, from community leaders to entertainers and so much more. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Johane Garvey and My Special Guest. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of Johane Garvey and My Special Guest. The architect here is Johane Garvey, and I am joined by another great special guest. You know, staying healthy is always important. Staying in shape, staying healthy, not just only for your body, but also for your mind. My special guest joining with me here on Johane Garvey and My Special Guest is a licensed nutritionist and gut specialist. I am joined by Johane Filemon. Hey, welcome to Johane Garvey and My Special Guest. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing great. You know what? On the way over here to the studio, I kept saying to myself, what should I eat today?
Okay.
What should I eat or what should I drink? Because you know the classic saying, you are what you eat.
Yes.
And in times like this, where there's so much processed foods or fast food restaurants everywhere, like there's a fast food restaurant on every corner, right? And people are still eating out, but yet more and more people are eating in due to the economic climate that we're in,
This
right?
is true.
So we're going to get into all that and more. But what made you, Johane Filemon, what made you want to become a nutritionist specialist? Let's start there.
Well, I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and initially I was on my way to med school. I was pre-med exercise science at Florida State University.
Florida State University, FSU.
FSU,
Hey.
And they introduced me to nutrition. So I was exercise science, and I loved to exercise even back then. I loved, anything active. And so they introduced me to nutrition courses, and I was like, what is this? And they were like, well, this could be a career where nutrition merges with medicine and becomes an actual career. And I was like, ooh, maybe I don't want to go to med school. Maybe I want to be a nutritionist, because I was raised in a household where both my parents were culinary trained. My dad did it for work. He was a French chef. And so good food, I loved good food. And I loved cooking in the kitchen. I loved throwing things and throwing down, putting things together.
Right.
And the fact that I could also help people live healthier with the foods that I could, I would be cooking or telling people how to cook, all that interested me. And that's what got me into the field of nutrition as a registered dietitian.
Bananas, but those Pop-Tarts, they were off the chain. But as I got older, and she has a son, that she sees him doing the same thing, and also noticing the type of foods that adults are eating, it made her even more conscious to say, hey, I need to go into a different direction and take my son with me to start eating right.
Right. That's modeling. What we model in the household is what our kids are going to pick up. Whether it's how we behave, our behavior, how we think, how we eat as well. Are we going to the grocery store? Are we stopping at McDonald's every day? Are we thinking about our health? Is our health important to us as human beings? That kind of modeling it's passed on down the line to our kids. And that's where the cycle continues, especially in the Black community where we see a lot of prevalence when it comes to chronic diseases. There's a lot of the cycle continues because the parents didn't know or they didn't model that behavior. So then that child, then when they have children, they're passing that, behavior on to their kids.
It's a generational cycle.
It's a generational cycle.
Well, let's go deeper into that as we, when you say that it goes back into the Black community or is prevalent in the Black community, because I do understand where you're coming from, but is there a deeper level to that on why it's so prevalent in the Black community?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's get into that conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, if we wanted to get into the systemic depression or, the lack of access that you were talking about, every corner there is a fast food restaurant, right? You won't find that as prevalent in a more affluent community. You'll find the Whole Foods, you'll find the grocery stores where they can have healthier options, as opposed to in a community where a food desert is prevalent. So they don't have access to the grocery store. They may have a bodega. They may have a corner store where they can buy canned stuff, not a lot of fresh options. So we're not necessarily to blame. Now, we can be actively, bettering ourselves, learning better, but the generational cycle we were talking about, we're kind of put into that place for, where majority of the Black community resides in the inner city. You'll find that there's no access to the fresh stuff that they need so that they can get more fiber, increase their fiber intake, or even the education that needs to be provided so that they can know why the need is to consume, more non-starchy, fresh fruits and vegetables, and not necessarily even frozen as well, but just that knowledge. We're not passing that information down because it's not known in the, by the mom, the grandmom, and great-grandparents, whomever it is that was, in the household.
When we talk about diseases among Black people, right, we talk about high cholesterol, we talk about, of course, high blood pressure, and the big one, diabetes, that affects so many people in the Black community.
Right.
Do you see that from your own experience and just from lineage? Did you see that more so often than maybe 30 years ago or 40 years ago? From what I remember, right? Like our great-grandparents, our grandparents, or what have you, they either ate in, there wasn't so many fast food restaurants.
Right.
They would go to the grocery store. Most of them would cook in the house.
Yeah.
Right. And you didn't hear a lot about people in the African diaspora or in the Black community being subject to dietary issues.
Right.
Like in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s,
right.
the era, right? But then you start to see a increase of what I just mentioned, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol.
Right.
Later on in the years ahead, like, I don't want to say centuries, but decades later and stuff. But have you noticed that
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big believer in our cultural foods and how it is part of our identity. Wherever you are in the Black diaspora, our culture, our foods, it makes up who we are. So we don't want to deprive people of those foods. And in my research and in the years that I've been in this field, you'll see that, as you said, in years past, we were eating the same food, quote unquote, but less diseases were seen. It's because a lot of the time these foods were from the fat of the land. Like people had their own garden. The food wasn't as processed as it is now. Nowadays, and in the access to restaurants and fast food, the idea of going out to eat wasn't something that was every day. It was every now and then. For a special occasion, we would go out and eat. But now, compared to back then, we're consuming more processed foods. We're eating out more often than not, and the quality of the food compared to back then is different as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Johane Filemon joining with me here, my special guest, nutritionist specialist, and gut specialist as well. We definitely got to talk about the gut side, but
Sure.
let's talk about foods and mental health. Let's touch on that. I am a mental health advocate, and I
Okay.
do a therapy show
Okay.
outside of this show. And I remember, Johane, once upon a time, when I was on WAOK 1380 here in Atlanta, I did a show called The Mental Space, which I curated, by the way, FYI, ladies and gentlemen. And I invited some guests on the show, and we talked about foods and mental health and how that affects people's mental state,
Yeah.
affects mental health. The question is why, though? Like, why does it affect
Well,
people's mental health?
we're going to jump right into the gut part because
well,
this is gut related.
Okay.
This is gut related.
Let's talk about it.
So, what we eat impacts our overall health. So I like to say that our gut is the gateway to our health. So if we are our overall health, including our mental health, so if we are someone who is consuming predominantly ultra-processed foods, because all foods are processed to a point unless you have a farm in the backyard where you're grabbing everything. Most of our foods are there's some kind of processing that has been, but ultra-processed foods. If you're predominantly consuming those kind of foods, then you're not feeding the gut microbiome. The bacteria, the good bacteria in the gut, they thrive on the fiber, they thrive on these antioxidants, these vitamins, and all these nutrients that we're finding in the foods that are less processed, right? And then so if these good bacteria, they start to die off, they start to impact everywhere else in the body, including our brain, our mental health. We know that serotonin, which is the happy hormone, as everyone knows, is predominantly housed in the gut. And the good bacteria in our gut is what produces the serotonin, the hormone. And so if we don't have a lot of good bacteria, then that serotonin starts going down. And then we start seeing mental health issues popping in. There's a lot of studies that have been released in the last few years putting that connection together of the gut microbiome and depression, for example, specific bacteria that are being linked to depression. When bad bacteria is when we see someone who's not consuming a diet that is rich in nutrients, predominantly plant-based. It doesn't mean that you're a vegan. It means that you're consuming a lot of plant-based foods.
Plant-based foods. Okay, and you know what? So interesting you say that. I come across a lot more vegans than ever before. These are people that didn't start out as vegans or plant-based. They were so used to eating meat and pork and everything that comes from an animal or came from an animal. And they realized later on that their whole lifestyle needs to change and has to change because it did something to their mental health. It did something to their brain where they would be moody all the time, so they would show negative behavioral patterns among their social circle. And it has something to do, like you said, with the gut.
With what they were eating.
With what they eat.
Right. Well, let's first put out some definitions here. So veganism and plant-based are not the same thing. You can be plant-based, meaning that you're plant-forward. You consume 75% or more of the meals, the foods on your plate are from plants and not from animals. But it doesn't mean that you are completely vegan. Nowadays, veganism is more of a lifestyle, and it's not just focused on what we're eating, it's what we're wearing, all that. But in my world, we talk about veganism, we were talking about the food aspect. We're talking about someone who completely eliminates animal products and consumes just the plant-based ones. But also, veganism and health are not synonymous. People like to think it is, but there's a lot of ultra-processed vegan foods. A lot of people who switch from consuming meat to veganism, they tend to substitute the meat that they were eating with ultra-processed meats. It's kind of the same thing. We're eating a lot of the ultra-processed products,
Right.
thinking that because we're vegan, we're healthier, but we're not consuming a lot of the plant-based foods.
Right.
You see what I mean? So it's not synonymous. Just because you're vegan, it doesn't mean you're healthier. Now, there are a lot of people who have seen improvements when they remove meat from their diet. And one, they're being more focused on their health, so they're being more cautious. And two, and it could be that they were intolerant to something that was causing them issues, and now that they're not consuming the meats that they were consuming, they're doing better. So there could be a lot of different reasons why that person is now feeling so much better.
You know, sometimes when we have conversations about vegan, some people look at that as a bad thing.
To be vegan?
To be vegan.
No.
It's like, or you tell
Absolutely
somebody, hey,
not.
I'm a vegetarian or I'm a vegan. Some people would be like, oh, you a vegan? Oh, you one of those? Oh, you trying to tell me you don't eat meat? And you from the South? Like,
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's an option. It's a preference. You can be a vegan. You can be a meat eater. The goal is to make sure that predominantly you are consuming plant-based foods. It does not mean you need to eliminate meat all the way. When we look at an American plate, it's either predominantly full of meat, animal protein, or it's predominantly full of starch. It's rare that we are consuming more non-starchy foods like your eggplants, your tomatoes, your green leafy vegetables, your collard greens. We're putting that on the side. We call them sides instead of the main part of our plates. And we should have the main part of our plate be the non-starchy vegetables and or fruits.
So what do you say to people that are watching that are used to eating, like say for example, we're here in Atlanta. We're in the dirty, dirty South.
Right.
People love their soul food.
Yes.
Especially on a Sunday. They love to go eat their mac and cheese. They love to eat their collard greens. I am guilty of partaking in that type of menu and that type
I
of
am
food.
too.
We are. What do you say to people like myself and us? Because there's some people that's watching and say, oh, you trying to say that I can't eat no more collard greens? I can't eat no more mac and cheese or no fried chicken or any of that?
Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, like I was saying earlier, I'm a big advocate of keeping our culture. It's rearranging our plate because, again, the quality of the food and preparation is kind of different than our ancestors and how they were preparing stuff and the quality of the foods that they had, right? So we have to, prepare it differently now and rearrange our plate. So the collard greens, we call them sides. So instead of that being a side, it needs to be more of what's on your plate. And then how you're preparing that collard green. Oftentimes we're using a lot of fat back, a lot of that saturated fat.
We sure do, we sure.
A lot of the saturated fats, which is what's, causing cholesterol levels to go up. So we want to decrease the amount of fat backs and what meats we're putting in there. Maybe not use a meat at all in the collard greens and flavor that thing up with some good herbs and spices. Okay? And put the meat on the side so that when you are consuming the meat, it's a quarter of your plate and it's not the bulk of your plate.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's very ancestral because you ever heard that expression? And we, as people of the African diaspora of the black community, we hear it all the time. We take lemons and we turn them into lemonade. Right. And everything, or most of what you're saying thus far, it just goes back to our ancestors being enslaved.
Right.
And how they cooked the food.
Right.
Right. And it's been passed down from generation to generation, and now you have this situation where people are dying out here and transitioning from dietary diseases and issues.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it stems from how we got here to this side of the world. We basically turned what they gave us, what they threw at us, into meals, and we turned them into good tasting meals. But still, I would argue that the quality of the foods that was eaten in the past, predominantly the quality that we have now is not the best because of so much processing that has been done, so many food preservatives that we're adding to our foods
Right.
that is disrupting our gut, disrupting our endocrine system, and leading to autoimmune conditions, various, all these diseases it's our body's attacking itself. Like, I don't know, what is this you're feeding me? Like, I don't like it. And it really does stem from where we started. So our job as a community is to basically shift from that, make intentional changes.
Very important. Very important. For those who are just tuning in, we are talking to Johane Filemon, and she is giving us some great information and insight on what we eat and how we eat, and just solutions on what we can do to maintain a healthier lifestyle. I want to switch gears and talk about alcohol, right?
Yeah.
I am an alcohol consumer, okay? I am not a heavy drinker. I don't consume alcohol on an everyday basis, but I like to get a taste every now and then. I'm a whiskey guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm a whiskey guy. My friend in the back knows. She knows what I'm talking about. But I've been hearing lately, especially in the news, that studies show alcohol has been linked to cancer. Let's talk about that, because that's a conversation that's been swept under the rug lately.
Well, I mean, it doesn't help the money makers. Alcohol is a big money maker.
Oh, yes, it is.
So, in years past, the recommendation has been women do not consume more than 1 serving of alcohol, and men 2 servings, and that differs from the type of alcohol. So beer versus whiskey versus bourbon, whatever it may be. The harder the liquor, of course, the more your limitations should be. But as of recently, studies are coming out, and the Surgeon General has now recommended that no alcohol be consumed for better health. Now, what we do know about alcohol is that the body does not know how to store it. So when you consume fats, proteins, carbohydrates, the body knows how to store that. If you consume it in excess, it finds different ways to store it, burn it, whatever needs to be done. Alcohol is toxic to the body. It can't be stored. So this is where the beer gut or beer belly comes into play with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's because when you're consuming a whole bunch of food and then you're drinking a whole bunch of alcohol, the body is going to go towards the toxic thing first and try to eliminate and eject that from the body. So instead of processing your food is going to sit there in your stomach, because its current job right now is removing the alcohol from the body, because the body doesn't know how to store it. So it is, in excess, it is toxic.
It's toxic. Wow. Okay. So an excess, like you just used the word, an excess of alcohol is toxic. I mean, obviously it's toxic, but what about somebody who just wants to have a taste every now and then, or just like maybe once or twice a year? Or?
Buyer beware. I mean, like I said, we used to say one serving for women, 2 serving for men, but the current recommendations are now omit as much as possible. So maybe every now and again, if you're, if it's Christmas time and you're having that cup of eggnog or whatever it may be, but we tend to be people who do extra. Instead of just having just the one cup.
We do the most.
We do the most. We're not gonna have 1 cup of eggnog. I mean, who does that?
But Johane, let's be real though. We have people out here, right? Even our viewers that watch us, they go to the nightclub. They go to the nightclub. They go to these social clubs, and what do they serve?
Yeah.
Alcohol, right? What's a nightclub without alcohol? So what do you think should be the right substitute for it, for party goers or even concert goers or even the nightlife goers?
Yeah, if you're someone who likes I'm a fruity drinker when I do drink. So instead of having the fruity cocktails, have a mocktail. Make a mocktail at home. Try to intentionally shift your mind from alcohol being what helps you to have fun. Have fun without the alcohol. Have the bubbly, the carbonated beverage that's not soda, but like a mineral water or whatever that's added to your mocktail to give it the fizzy drink that you're looking for.
I just had some mineral water the other day. It's funny that you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, mineral water is fine. It's a great substitute for people who love that fizzy taste. That's one of the draws to them when it comes to drinking sodas.
Okay, so mineral water, all right.
Mocktails.
You can get a mocktail from anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, mocktail. What else? What are there some other substitutes, other alternatives out there besides the whiskey, besides the what other drinks are out there? The Chardonnays and
all those are wine, all those are alcohol.
Yeah.
All those are alcohol. So you would have to get a non-alcoholic beverage. If you're someone, I would not recommend anyone consuming alcohol every day. I would not.
Absolutely.
And if you are someone who's going out on the weekends once a week, I would not recommend you do it in excess.
Have you heard of, and this goes back to veganism, have you heard of vegetarian wine?
Yes, I have.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, all wine, are you talking about vegan wine?
Okay. Vegan wine or vegetarian wine?
All wine, in a sense, is vegan or vegetarian because it's coming from an animal product. It's coming from a plant product. I apologize for that. It's not coming from an animal product. So it is vegetarian in that sense. The vegan wine is more of that lifestyle of, how the wine was made and produced. It didn't harm any animals. No animal. The label doesn't have any animal related anything. That's more of what it is when they're talking about that vegan wine.
Vegan wine. I first heard about that particular wine on a radio show recently when they invited an entertainer. I won't say who he is or his name is, but he's used to drinking wine. And the radio host said to him, why not, I thought she said vegetarian wine, but she may have said vegan wine. Vegan wine. And he didn't know that vegan wine existed.
Was the person trying to say that it didn't have any alcohol in it? The vegan wine had no alcohol?
She insinuated that.
That it didn't? Not from what I know. The only wine that doesn't have alcohol is non-alcoholic types of wine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm a social drinker. I'm not an everyday drinker because, I'm out there at parties, at events. It's part of my profession. It's part of what I do as a media broadcaster.
Yeah.
And so I've always been looking for something that would substitute what I'm used to drinking, right? So maybe a mocktail could be a substitute.
It could be a substitute. Some people, they just like to have something that they're holding in their hand, and that mocktail is going to work.
Yeah. And what about women, before we shift over to another subject, what about women that consume wine the most? I've seen so many women, especially African-American women, drink red wine so much. What about that? What are your thoughts on that, the consumption, if you will, of many women in our community consuming the red wine?
It goes back to the in excess part. If you're consuming it in excess, it's toxic to the body. The body can't process or can't store alcohol.
Right.
So we still should not, whether it's wine, whether it's hard liquor, we shouldn't be consuming it in excess. Now, if you look at across the world in Europe, wine is like water over there. They're drinking it all the time. And, again, we've, over the years, have talked about some of the benefits that red wine can have for heart health. But the current recommendations now are steering us away from, those recommendations of, every now and again, an alcoholic beverage is okay.
Wow. Very, very important. Very important. Not just only for men, but for women also.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to continue to switch gears and let's talk about keeping health in the family, right? Very important. Coming from a background where I only had a mother in the household, and my mother wasn't a wine drinker also. She wasn't even a beer drinker or an alcohol drinker. I was influenced to consume alcohol. This kind of stays in the subject of what we just talked about, but it also switches over to other things pertaining to the dietary aspect. And so coming from a community where we didn't have a lot of farmers, we didn't have a lot of education, if you will, about the pros and cons of foods and stuff. What we only learned in school is the food chain, right? You
Food
remember
guide pyramid.
the food guide pyramid
Yeah,
and stuff,
we
right?
took that away now.
Oh, it's taken away. Ah,
Did you
I wonder
know
why.
exactly how much of what to eat from that food guide pyramid?
No, I did
It
not.
didn't really tell us that.
They didn't really tell us that.
We just saw it, and so that's where the food, the plate method comes in.
Yeah.
Where I was talking about predominantly half your plate being non-starchy fruits and vegetables, a quarter of your plate can be a meat
Yeah.
or protein, and then a quarter's a starch.
Yeah. So going back to family, how can we educate and instill the importance of the type of foods that each family member should eat or should consume? Like how do we get back or giving family members showing family members the importance of how we should eat healthy?
The family.
Yeah.
I think social media is doing a good job in, I guess, creating a movement where a lot of the people in the Black community are trying to get on the bandwagon of living healthier, eating, consuming healthier, more nutrient-rich type foods. And I think just from that little bit from social media, then that information can get passed down to the household. So if mom sees it or dad sees it or whomever is the adult in the house sees it, they then start passing that knowledge on to their children.
Yeah.
I'm always, advocating the kids are never too young to start getting involved in what's for dinner. Actually, they're more likely to consume dinner if they're involved in how the process of dinner. So going grocery shopping, what are we making? What are we buying? Taking them with you to the grocery store so they can see where you're purchasing your foods. Even if you have access to a garden or a farm, just getting them out there just to see how food is grown. And then when you get home, letting them participate in the preparation safely, wherever they're at in age, whether it's, if they can chop, let them chop, show them how to chop, help them, assist them in learning more about how the foods they're consuming are being prepared. And that knowledge sticks with them. You would not believe. It's because kids, we know they're a sponge. They're picking up everything they're seeing in the household. And so what we're bringing in the household, what we learn as adults, we bring it in the household. And that's how we can start breaking the cycle of this generational cycle of unhealthy eating.
Right. I've seen so many TV shows and even movies where the family would sit at the table and the child or the kid is looking at the food, the plate of food that is full of what appears to be vegetables and other things that the mom made in the kitchen and stuff, and the child looks at it and doesn't want to eat it. The mom and the dad keeps telling the child, son, eat your food, or honey,
clean your plate.
Clean your plate, right? And the child is like, I don't want this. I don't want broccoli. I hate broccoli. I hate peas.
Right.
Right. But to what you said, it's got to be the exposure.
The exposure.
Yeah.
That's it. It can take 20 or more exposures for a child to even accept what you've presented to them. And the other thing is that when we're exposing, we tend to expose in abundance. So child doesn't like broccoli or have never seen broccoli before, and we bring them a whole heaping spoon of broccoli on the plate. It's better to give a smaller portion, even like a pea size. I know that's small, but like a pea size amount of that broccoli, along with something that they're already familiar with that they do like. They're less likely to be overwhelmed. They're more likely to try that little broccoli. And of course, if they were part of the preparation of that broccoli, they're more likely to consume it as well.
Very important, very important. I want to go back to the cancer part. People, especially people that are like in their 20s and their 30s and 40s, they are transitioning rapidly through cancer. I was hit hard a couple of years ago when actor Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer. And then a few other people, even this year, Ananda Lewis, media personality, passed away from breast cancer. And so whether it's from dietary or it could be something that they inherited from generations before, what are your thoughts on people, especially that are like in their 30s and 40s, transitioning at a rapid pace? Because this is something that I've never seen.
It's like an epidemic, right?
It's like an epidemic, right?
Well,
do you think it traces back to the foods that we
absolutely
eat, or is it environmental, or all of the above?
You know, it is all the above. But we don't have as much control with our environment. You know, you live in a certain area, you don't have control as to what they're emitting in the air or whatnot, but you can have a little bit more control as to what you're eating. What we do know about chronic diseases, cancer included, is that inflammation is a big part of it, chronic inflammation. And that chronic inflammation, when it's not addressed, it's what's leading to these conditions. Cancer is included in that. And so if someone is not feeding their gut microbiome, okay, chronic inflammation tends to set in. And that's where we start seeing these different conditions come about. And cancer is one of them. I believe the percentage is 99% of diseases that we have out there stems from chronic inflammation.
Chronic inflammation, okay. And now what's that to the people? Just kind of expound on chronic inflammation.
Sure. So inflammation is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So acute inflammation is different from chronic inflammation. You stub your toe, you get a cut. We want our inflammatory system to kick in and do what it's supposed to do, to heal that area, to soothe that area, whatever it may be. But when chronic inflammation sets in, it's when the inflammatory system doesn't go back to its balanced leveled nature. It stays elevated, and your body's in a constant state of inflammation. And that chronic inflammation over years then starts attacking the body. The good bacteria starts dying off, and then different conditions start developing, whether it be diabetes, which is an autoimmune, heart disease, you know, high blood pressure, a lot of it. There's a study that just came out the other day connecting heart disease or high blood pressure with the gut and you know, the sodium intake. It's not that the sodium levels are basically, the high salt intake is killing the good bacteria. So every time we're doing things that are killing those good bacteria, we're increasing our risks of various conditions, including the chronic inflammation.
So basically, the more bad stuff we put into our bodies, it just increases the levels and increases the risk, if you will.
The good bacteria are not thriving. They're not thriving. They're not being fed. You got to feed them, and they're fed from the foods that are higher in fiber. The fiber is helping them to thrive. And if we're consuming foods that are lacking in fiber, they're highly processed, we're not feeding the good bacteria, and over time, they're going to die.
People think that when they go to the doctor and they get diagnosed and the doctor tells them, oh, you have some form of cancer, you have this type of cancer, right? Or you have this type of disease. Some people think that they could just go to a nearby store or shop and get herbal products, that they could just take some herbal medicine, or they will just go organic, if you will, go months without eating processed foods, if you will, or go to the gym, exercise and work out. Do you think that's the end-all solution to that?
I wouldn't say it's the end-all solution because every body is different. Everyone's gut microbiome is different. It's like our fingerprint is. It's that different. So for one person who has that diagnosis and they switch everything around because they were consuming predominantly ultra-processed foods, they were not drinking any water, they weren't eating any plant-based foods at all, that person does the switch and it really helps them. It manages the cancer, it may reverse, they may go into remission. But then there's another person who does the exact same thing and it does not help them. Everyone is different, and really it is an individualized decision to decide on whether you're going to go the holistic route or if you're going to go the traditional medicine route, or better yet, combine the two. If that's what works for you, but everyone is different. But it really, if you do have a cancer diagnosis or any kind of disease diagnosis, look at your diet, look at what you're eating. Am I feeding my body? Start feeding your body.
One thing we didn't mention too is cigarette smoking, which of course can and are contributing factors to different forms of cancers and stuff. What does cigarette smoking do to the person's body in detail that may not know?
Well, when it comes to the nutrition side,
let's talk about that.
Typically, when someone is an avid smoker, they tend to not eat enough. People who like to do this motion of smoking all the time, they tend to have poor appetites. It's not for everyone now. But you can see that in a lot of the people who are avid smokers, where they're not consuming a lot of food, and when they do, that food tends to not be something that's more nutritious, a nutritious side. And then when that person's educated so that they can stop smoking, they tend to then start overeating because the motion of this is such a habit for them. They used to be doing this, and now they're doing this. So they're consuming more food.
I did not know that.
So that behavior, that person needs to be educated and I guess assisted so that they don't go to this motion of consuming more food because they're so used. It's like a habit. It's a habit of them doing this motion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Another important fact, very important fact. Two things before we let you go. Exercising.
Yeah.
Okay? How much, or better yet, how often should a person exercise and eat right at the same time? Because it can be an imbalance sometimes. A person can go and exercise and then go right back into the habit of consuming the processed foods and stuff. Like what?
Or they're not consuming foods that feed their body, but then they're exercising thinking that that's all they need to do. They go hand in hand. Health is an overall thing. We're talking about physical, we're talking about diet, we're talking about mental. All of it equals health. So if someone is just exercising and then when they do consume food, it's only, green, leafy vegetables on their plate, chicken, and that's it. We like to see color on the plate. The more colorful your plate is, the more nutrients you're consuming, the more antioxidants, the more anti-inflammatory properties you're consuming. So we want to see you doing that all the time. And of course, when I say all the time, I guess I need to reel that back in. Most of the time, so I would say 85 to 90% of the time, we're consuming nutritious foods that are full of these nutrients, right? And then when it comes to exercise, the recommendation, it can differ from person to person depending on what they're trying to manage. But for heart health, the recommendation is at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes, that person's being, active. But that could be, different from depending on the person's goal. Someone's trying to lose weight, if they're trying to gain muscle, how you're working out can, whether it's cardio, whether it's strength conditioning, all that is going to differ depending on the person's goal.
What are your thoughts on cheat dates?
Okay, so cheat days can work for certain people. The thing is that, let's say your cheat day, it's often on the weekend. That weekend day that you choose, you go crazy. Morning, you wake up, you're just having it all. Lunch, you're having it all. It kind of negates what you did during the week. So even if we're going to have these cheat days or these periods during the week where we have something that's not as nutritious, so that 15% part, we shouldn't do it in an excess. It was a cardiologist, I believe, who put this in my mind of moderation, because we like to say everything in moderation.
I hear that
but
a lot.
moderation
Yeah.
is different for person to person. My
Yeah.
moderation may be 4 cookies. Your moderation may be 10 cookies before that heart attack that was about to happen happens.
Yeah.
So he was explaining that to us because he tends to see it during like the holidays where people have the tendency to, have a heart attack more
Sure.
often, not because
Right.
they went over in the moderation that was for them. So it's really about learning your body and learning what works for you, what foods you tolerate the best.
Right.
Because toleration and what we tolerate does matter in how our bodies function in our health. Us as a Black community, we don't tolerate dairy well. We are lactose intolerant predominantly. And there's other ways to get the nutrients that are in dairy if you are lactose intolerant. You can get calcium from your leafy greens. You can get vitamin D from the sun, from certain mushrooms. And if you're that significantly deficient of vitamin D, then a supplement would be the next bet.
Lastly, and this is for all of my adults that are listening right now, whether you are in a relationship or you're married, how does nutrition tie in with the intimacy in the bedroom? Let's talk about that, because that might be another conversation for a part 2.
Listen,
But let's try to shorten it as much as we can.
People, we can do that. People don't realize the connection that food has with, when I say overall health, I'm talking about overall health. Your libido, your sex drive, it's all tied to your gut health. If your gut is not functioning right, if you're not consuming the foods that are feeding the cells of your body, things are not going to start to function right. You're not going to want to have sex. Okay, as women, especially as we're creeping up in our 40s, then perimenopause and menopause and all that stuff start to creep in, where our sex drives can decrease. Food is a big part of that. So what you're consuming does impact. In our 20s, we think we are invincible. We can eat whatever we want. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
But it starts catching up to you in your 40s, your late 30s, your 40s,
Absolutely.
50s. So it's never too late to start making the change. If you feel, I'm always saying rule things out. So if something's going on, go to the doctor, rule anything serious out.
Yeah.
And then the next step is start looking at your diet, start making changes.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of women say, especially the ones that are in relationships with men, they say, oh, my significant other has ED, erectile dysfunction, because of foods that he is accustomed to eating.
Yeah.
Like the junk foods,
Right.
the processed foods, and things of that sort. So that's a real thing.
Yeah. So over time, the consumption of these ultra processed foods, they will rear, the ugly head of disease. And it manifests in different ways for certain people. Some people, it's erectile dysfunction. Some people develop diabetes, and that diabetes can lead to erectile dysfunction as well. It could be this person has eczema. It could be, their mental health is impacted, or they're anxious all the time. It manifests in different ways, but it will start to manifest if we continue down the path of not feeding our body nutritious foods.
I said this on my radio show, The Remix, on WRFG here in Atlanta, and I said to my host, DJ Yogi, I need to find me somebody. I need a woman who's going to help me get on the path of being more and more healthier. Like, I look good on camera, you all. But it's going to take another person to hold me accountable to the
Yeah.
foods that I need to eat and the type of foods I need to stay away
Away
from.
from?
I need
I
accountability
mean, equally
partner.
yoked. It does that equally yoked thing. It does come into play with life. So whatever equally yoked means for you, you need to find somebody who's on par with your journey, your goals in life. If you're somebody who's on a journey for wellness, you need to find somebody who's also on the journey for wellness. If you can't cook, you may need to find somebody who can cook, so that you may, or maybe both of y'all can't cook and y'all can learn to cook together.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So that leads me to my last question for you. What advice, especially people who are in their 40s, like myself, right? Or people that are younger or people that are a bit older in their 40s, what can they do right now to change how they eat? What foods they need to stay away from and things? Well, let's start there. What foods do you recommend people need to stay away from? Let's start there.
Let's stay away from the significantly processed foods. And when I say significantly processed foods, I'm talking about the foods where it's hard for you to come up with what tree it came from. It's hard to say this came from potatoes or this came from apples or something like that. Let's stay away from these kinds of foods. If we are buying packaged foods, turn around in the back of the nutrition facts and the ingredients. Look and see how much fiber is in that package. How much sodium. We want the sodium to be low. We want the fiber to be high. Let's consume foods that are more plant-based. So we're talking about your vegetables, the non-starchy vegetables, the fruits, and it doesn't have to be fresh. It can be frozen. It can be canned. Nowadays we can find canned products that don't have a lot of sodium or it doesn't have any sodium at all.
Okay.
If it does have sodium and that's all you have access to, try to rinse some of that out and consume that. There's still fiber in that. I'd rather you do that than consume fast food every day. So your plate, the plate method, when we were talking about the food guide pyramid,
Right.
the plate method is what has taken place. So the plate method, talk about it. Half of your plate, fruits and or vegetables. I like to add color to that because that's more nutrients you're adding. A quarter of your plate can be an animal protein or it can be a completely plant-based. It's up to you. And the other quarter is where your starch would go. And that starch, corn is a starch, your bread is a starch, your potatoes, your rice, your pasta, all those are starches, and that's where that quarter of the plate would go in that quarter of the plate. Now, this plate can look different for different people, but on average, we want the plate to look as I've just said. For some, if you are a bodybuilder, if you are a professional athlete, your plate looks different, of course, and how much of that plate you're consuming throughout the day also differs. But to start, that's what I want everyone to start. Rearranging your plate, making sure predominantly you're consuming non-starchy fruits and or vegetables, and add color to your plate. 2 to 3 colors on your plate every time you eat.
And what are the non-starchy vegetables, just to be specific with our viewers?
Yeah, so your leafy greens, your collard greens, your turnip greens, your kale, your eggplants, your tomatoes, onions, your squashes, zucchini, summer squashes, all of those, and then your fruits. All those are considered non-starches, and then your starches are anything that's coming from the grains. So your rice, your potatoes, any tubers, plantains are a starch. It has some good resistant starches in there too. That's good for your gut health. But all those are starches.
What about avocado?
Avocado is a fruit.
Speaking on we can now go into the fruit side.
Yeah,
Avocado.
yeah. Avocados are great. They have good healthy fats in them. You know, a little Haas size, small, medium avocado with
Right.
your meal is fine. There are some larger avocados. It's still it's a healthy fat, but it's a fat. So we don't want to consume predominantly just our plate being avocados.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's plenty of fruits and vegetables that are non-starch out there for people to consume. And
Absolutely.
you know, they just have to take it one day at a time.
One day
right?
at a time, give yourself grace. I say baby steps, but don't get stuck in one place for months. You know, give yourself the grace, you know, especially I'm a mom, things happen, we plan to cook, you know, we got to go to the pizza stops, a spot to stop for dinner because something happened and it stopped us. Okay, we understand, that's fine, that's life. don't make that a habit. Don't do that every day. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. So for more information and for people to get in contact with you, go ahead and give people the website.
So my website is JohaneFilemon.com. So that's JohaneFas as in Frank, ILEMON.com.
And I want people to take away that you don't have to always find yourself in a situation where you're eating bad foods, no matter what the circumstances are. I think that people's behavioral patterns and their mindset would change for the better, and we would see positive outcomes and positive changes if people just eat right.
Yeah. I mean, things happen in life, of course, but we just have to be consistent. Consistency over time. You didn't get to wherever you're at overnight. So it's going to take consistency to change the habits and change the behaviors to better us as a community.
Now, let me ask you this last question. Now, in the economic crisis that we're in right now, what advice can you give to people that may not be able to afford to buy foods that, like your Whole Foods, if you will? Of course, we know those stores are...
We're not.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah.
If you can, sometimes I'm stepping into Whole Foods, but oftentimes I'm not. So your local grocery store, look for the coupons, look for what's on sale. I'm shopping, I'm going to Costco, I'm going to Publix, I'm going to Kroger, I'm going to all the places to see, oh, you got buy one, get one free this week? Then this is where I'm at this week. We just got to do more research in what we're spending. And now everything is online, so we can see what's on sale without having to go to the different stores and waste our time. But also, if you have to be someone who has to go to a food pantry, go to the food pantry.
Yeah.
The food pantries, they do have good options. They have some good canned goods. Look at the canned goods. If it's high in sodium, remember I said to rinse it out before you cook with it. But the food pantries, the churches, they're giving out food. I'm of the belief of feeding first. So feed first, so food first, let's eat first, and then once we get access to food, let's rearrange what we're eating.
Yeah.
So if you don't have access to food at all, let's find food first. And then once we found, we now have access to food, let's now try to rearrange how we're eating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do some research online, people. There's plenty of food pantry places out there.
There are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Johane Filemon, thank you so much. Thank you so much and for coming through and
it's
giving
been a
us
pleasure.
This information. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, Johane Garvey and my special guest. We got more on the way. Stay tuned. We got more great episodes. Keep it locked right here to Johane Garvey and my special guest.
Bye.